For 9 months, she slept in a rusted Honda Civic behind a Safeway parking lot. 16 years old. No mother, no father, no home. She washed her face in McDonald's bathrooms at 5 in the morning. She ate one meal a day because a cafeteria worker pretended the cash register was broken. She wore the same 3 shirts, the same broken sneakers held together with twine. Every single day she walked into that high school invisible to every soul who passed her. She had perfected the art of being nobody. Then the worst day in that school's history came, and the homeless girl no one had ever seen walked straight out of a locked classroom to save the only person who had ever been kind to her. 300 Hell's Angels stood up that night, and what they did next, no one in that town will ever forget. The words tore from Roxy Vaughn's throat as she pressed her trembling hands against the spreading crimson on Sadie Boone's chest, her fingers slipping in the warm blood that poured between them. Around them, the hallway echoed with screams and the sharp crack of gunfire and the wet sound of a girl trying to breathe through a punctured lung. But in that moment, nothing existed except the fading light in the homeless girl's eyes. The girl who had thrown herself in front of a bullet meant for her. The girl nobody had ever really seen until it was almost too late. Before we dive into this incredible story of sacrifice, courage, and an unlikely family forged in the chaos of tragedy, hit that subscribe button and stick with me until the very end. This story will shake you to your core. And drop a comment telling me what city you are watching from. I want to see how far Sadie's story travels. Now let us begin. 3 months earlier, Sadie Boone had learned that invisibility was not a superpower. It was a curse. She moved through the halls of Oak Haven High like a ghost, her shoulders hunched, her eyes fixed on the scuffed linoleum beneath her worn-out sneakers. The same sneakers she had been wearing for 9 months, the soles peeling the laces, replaced with a piece of twine she had found behind a hardware store. The same sneakers she slept in every night in the back seat of a rusted 1998 Honda Civic parked 3 blocks away in a grocery store lot where the night manager had not called the cops on her yet. The Civic had belonged to her mother once. It was the only thing Sadie had left from a life that no longer existed. Sadie had perfected the art of being nobody. She knew exactly which bathroom stalls were empty during lunch period. She knew which water fountains ran coldest when her stomach cramped from hunger. She knew which hallway routes avoided the clusters of students who might actually notice her, not that they ever did. To them, she was just part of the scenery, another face in the blur of 1,000 teenagers moving from class to class. Sadie had learned that the trick to surviving was making yourself smaller than the world demanded. But hunger had a way of making you visible when you least wanted to be. Move it, weirdo. The shove came from behind, sending Sadie stumbling forward into the cafeteria door. Her bag containing everything she owned, 2 shirts, 1 pair of jeans, a toothbrush, and a water-damaged copy of Jane Eyre, slipped from her shoulder and hit the floor. Paper scattered, loose change rolled across the linoleum. "Watch where you are going, Brock," Riggs sneered. The linebacker's voice carried across the hallway. His friends laughed that casual cruelty that teenagers wielded like weapons. Sadie did not respond. She never did. She just knelt down and gathered her belongings with trembling fingers, trying to stuff everything back into her bag before anyone noticed the way her hands shook. Not from fear, but from the simple fact that she had not eaten in 2 days. "Always on the floor," Boone, another voice called out. Someone laughed harder. Sadie's jaw tightened, but she kept her head down. This was survival. This was how you made it through another day. Do not react. Do not engage. Do not give them anything they could use against you. She pushed through the cafeteria doors, and the smell of food hit her like a physical blow. Her stomach twisted so violently, she thought for a moment she might actually collapse right there. The aroma of pizza French fries, something warm and bread-like, made her mouth water so intensely it hurt. "Sadie." The voice was soft, gentle. Mrs. Loretta Decker stood behind the serving counter, her kind eyes taking in Sadie's gaunt face, the dark circles beneath her eyes, the way her sweater hung loose from a frame that had grown thinner every week since September. Loretta was 62, with silver gray hair pulled back into a neat bun, and she was the only person in this entire building who looked at Sadie and actually saw her. "Yes, ma'am." Sadie's voice came out rougher than she intended. "Come here, honey." Sadie approached the counter, slowly aware of the students behind her in line, their impatient shuffling. Loretta did not say anything else. She just loaded up a tray, double portions of everything, a carton of milk, 2 apples, a wrapped sandwich she slipped onto the side. Her eyes met Sadie's, and in that look was an entire conversation. I know. I see you. This is what I can do. No charge today, Loretta said quietly. Cash register is acting up. Sadie's throat constricted. Thank you, she whispered. You eat all of that, you hear me, all of it. Sadie nodded, not trusting her eyes, and carried the tray to the far corner of the cafeteria. Her usual spot, behind a pillar where no one could see her, where she could eat without the shame of being watched, without the questions she could not answer. The first bite of pizza nearly made her weep. The cheese was still warm, the sauce tangy, and her body responded with such desperate gratitude that her hands shook as she ate. She forced herself to chew slowly, even though every instinct screamed at her to devour everything as fast as possible. She had learned that lesson the hard way. Eating too fast after days of nothing made you sick. And being sick when you lived in a car was a nightmare nobody warned you about. She was halfway through the meal when she noticed her. Roxy Vaughn sat 3 tables away, surrounded by her usual group, but she was not engaged in their conversation. She was staring at her phone, her expression distant, almost broken. Everything about Roxy screamed money and danger in equal measure. The designer leather jacket that probably cost more than Sadie had seen in her entire life. The black combat boots. The way she carried herself like a girl who had been taught from cradle that nobody could touch her. But there was something else too. Something in the set of her shoulders that spoke of a different kind of burden. Sadie knew who she was. Everyone did. Roxy Vaughn, daughter of Stone Vaughn, vice president of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. The kind of connection that made teachers nervous, that made administrators walk carefully, that surrounded her with an invisible wall of do not touch or else. She looked up suddenly, and for just a fraction of a second their eyes met. Sadie looked away immediately, heat rushing to her face. The last thing she needed was for someone like Roxy Vaughn to notice her. She finished her meal, quickly pocketed the sandwich and apples for later, and slipped out of the cafeteria before anyone could speak to her. The rest of the day passed in its usual fog of exhaustion and careful navigation. Sadie went through the motions in her classes. She never raised her hand. She never drew attention. In English, Mrs. Patterson was discussing the symbolism of fire and ice in Jane Eyre, and Sadie could have contributed. She had read the book 7 times in the back seat of her car under the glow of a parking lot lamp, but she kept silent. Speaking up meant being noticed, and being noticed led to questions. Where do you live, Sadie? Why do you not have a phone number on file? Can we call your parents for the field trip permission slip? Why does your sweater smell like the inside of a gas station? After the final bell, Sadie walked 3 blocks to the grocery store parking lot, her bag heavy on her shoulder. The Civic sat in the far corner, rust eating through the wheel wells, one taillight held in place with a strip of electrical tape that had gone gray in the Oregon rain. Home. She climbed into the back seat, pulled the door closed, and immediately felt the temperature drop. March in Oregon meant cold nights, and the car had no heat. Sadie pulled out a sleeping bag she had found at a thrift store for $6 she had earned by returning bottles and cans for deposit refunds, and wrapped it around herself. The sandwich Mrs. Decker had given her sat on the seat beside her. She would save it for tomorrow morning along with 1 apple. The other apple would be tomorrow's lunch. This was the math of survival, stretching every meal as far as it would go, planning every calorie, making every bite count. Sadie pulled out Jane Eyre and tried to read by the dim light of the parking lot lamp, but exhaustion dragged at her. She had been awake since 4 in the morning, startled out of sleep by a security guard banging on the window of her car, telling her to move along. She had driven to another lot, parked, tried to sleep again, failed, and eventually just started her day early. Her eyes drifted closed, the book falling onto her chest. She dreamed of the house she had lived in before everything fell apart, before her mother's overdose, before the foster homes that ranged from neglectful to nightmarish, before she had run at 15, choosing the uncertainty of the streets over the guarantee of more pain at the hands of a foster father who had started watching her differently. In the dream, her mother was healthy and smiling, making pancakes in a kitchen full of morning light. In the dream, Sadie was 8 years old and believed that things would always be that good. She woke to cold and darkness in the reality of the back seat of a dying car. The Oregon rain started around 3 in the morning. Sadie heard it before she felt it. The soft tapping on the roof, the percussion of water against metal. The Civic's window seals had given up months ago, and now a thin trickle of cold water made its way down the inside of the rear passenger window and pooled on the floor mat by her feet. Sadie shifted the sleeping bag higher. She tucked her feet in under her. She had learned how to sleep in a half-folded position that kept her dry. She had learned a lot of things in 9 months that nobody should have to learn. She had learned that the loneliest hour was 4 in the morning, not midnight, not 3, 4. Because at 4 the world had emptied of even the people who could not sleep. The truckers were at rest stops. The drunks had gone home. The night shift had ended and the morning shift had not begun. At 4, Sadie was the only person awake in her corner of Oregon, and the silence had a texture you could feel against your skin. She had learned that bathrooms were a currency. 24-hour gas stations, hospital lobbies, big chain coffee shops. Each one had its own personality. Each one had its own employee who would either look away or call the manager. Sadie had a list in her head, ranked of which bathrooms she could use at which hours. She had learned that the cleaning crew at the Hilton downtown did not come through the lobby until 5:30, which meant the public restroom was hers from 3 to 5 if she could get past the night clerk. She had learned that the kindness of strangers was a real and unreliable thing. Sometimes a woman at a Denny's would slide a plate of leftovers across to her without comment. Sometimes a man would scream at her to get out before he called the police on her. She had learned that hunger had stages. The first day was the easy day. Your stomach growled and you ignored it. The second day was when your head started to hurt and your hands started to shake. The third day was when the world went silver around the edges. The fourth day was a place Sadie had only been to twice and never wanted to go back to. On the fourth day, the hunger stopped feeling like hunger and started feeling like a slow drowning. On the fourth day, you understood why people did things they would not have done before. She had learned that the human body could survive a great deal more than it could comfortably tolerate. She had learned that a person could be very tired and still get up. She had learned that the world did not stop being beautiful just because you were sleeping in a parking lot. Some mornings the sky over Portland turned a color of pink that did not look real. Some afternoons the light came through a stand of trees behind the Safeway and made everything golden for 10 minutes. Sadie kept track of those moments. She added them up in her head. She told herself that on the days the moments were enough, the world was paying her rent. She had also learned that the body had a memory the mind tried to forget. She would startle awake at any tap on the window even when there was no tap. She would flinch when an adult man stood too close in a checkout line. She would feel a hand on her arm in a dream and wake up rigid, ready to run. The foster father in Salem had never actually touched her. He had only watched. He had only stood in the doorway of her bedroom in the mornings while she pretended to sleep. But her body had decided all on its own that watching was enough. Her body had decided to leave. And Sadie was grateful to her body. Her body had been smarter than her mind. Her body had known what was coming before her mind could name it. The next morning, Sadie washed up in the McDonald's bathroom, brushing her teeth, splashing cold water on her face, trying to make herself presentable. The employee who worked the early shift knew her by now and did not say anything when she spent 15 minutes at the sink. Small mercies. At school, she moved through the morning in her usual pattern. First period calculus, where she was failing, despite understanding the material better than most of the class. She could not focus on homework when she was worried about where she would sleep or what she would eat. Second period history, where she kept her eyes open through sheer force of will while Mr. Davidson droned on about the Civil War. Third period was when everything changed. The hallway between classes was always chaos. Students shouting, lockers slamming, the thunder of 1,000 footsteps. Sadie kept to the right side, her usual path head down, not looking at anyone. She did not see Roxy Vaughn until she had already collided with her. Books exploded from Roxy's arms, scattering across the floor. Her phone skittered away, spinning across the linoleum. "I am sorry. I am so sorry." Sadie dropped to her knees, immediately scrambling to gather Roxy's things, her heart hammering. Of all the people to run into, of all the possible mistakes. "It is fine," Roxy said, and her voice was different than Sadie had expected. Not cold, not entitled, just tired. She knelt down beside Sadie, reaching for her books. Their hands touched as they both reached for the same notebook, and Sadie jerked back like she had been burned. I said it is fine, Roxy repeated. And this time she looked directly at Sadie, really looked at her. Her eyes were an unusual shade of green, and there was something in them. Not pity, which Sadie would have hated, but recognition. Like Roxy saw something in her that others missed. You are in my English class, Roxy said. Third row by the window. Sadie froze. She had noticed her. Yeah, Sadie managed. You know the material. I can tell. Roxy gathered her books, stood up. You should participate more. Mrs. Patterson would love to hear what you think about Jane Eyre. I do not really. I am not. Sadie stood too, clutching Roxy's phone, which she had retrieved. She held it out. Roxy took it, and their eyes met again. This time Sadie saw it clearly, the exhaustion that mirrored her own, the weight Roxy carried. Different circumstances, different struggles, but the same fundamental weariness. Thank you, Roxy said quietly. Are you okay? The question came out before Sadie could stop it, before she could remember that she did not talk to people, did not inquire, did not risk connection. Roxy's expression shifted, surprise flickering across her features. Why would you ask me that? Sadie shrugged immediately, regretting the question. You look like you did not sleep. For a long moment, Roxy did not respond. Then so quietly, Sadie almost did not hear her. I did not. Me neither, Sadie said, and then immediately wanted to disappear. Why was she doing this? Why was she talking to Roxy Vaughn of all people? Something passed between them in that moment. An understanding, an acknowledgement that they were both running on empty, both barely holding on. Different reasons, different lives, but the same exhaustion in their bones. I have to get to class, Roxy said, but she did not move immediately. Maybe I will see you in English. Sadie nodded, unable to speak, and watched as Roxy walked away, her leather jacket swinging with her stride, confident despite the tiredness Sadie had seen in her eyes. The rest of the day, Sadie could not stop thinking about those 5 minutes in the hallway. The way Roxy had looked at her, the way she had actually seen her, not through her, the way her voice had softened when she had admitted she had not slept. When English class came around, Sadie found herself actually paying attention when Mrs. Patterson asked about the imagery of fire in Jane Eyre. Anyone. What does the fire at Thornfield represent? Silence. The usual silence. Sadie's hand started to rise, then stopped halfway. Her heart pounded. Do not do it. Do not be noticed. It is destruction. Roxy's voice came from across the room. But it is also rebirth. Jane and Rochester both have to burn before they can love each other as equals. Mrs. Patterson beamed. Excellent, Roxy. Exactly right. Sadie caught Roxy's eye across the room, and Roxy gave her the smallest smile, like she knew Sadie had been about to answer, like she had beaten her to it on purpose. Something warm unfurled in Sadie's chest, something she had not felt in so long she had almost forgotten what it was called. Connection. That night in her car, Sadie ate her saved sandwich, slowly making it last. As she chewed, she replayed the moment in the hallway over and over. The way Roxy had looked at her, the way she had asked a question like Sadie's answer mattered, the way she had smiled in English class. She knew it was dangerous to let herself feel this way. Hope was a luxury she could not afford. Connection meant vulnerability, and vulnerability meant getting hurt. She had learned that lesson too many times. But as she settled into her sleeping bag, the cold seeping through the thin fabric, Sadie let herself imagine, just for a moment, what it might be like to have a friend. She fell asleep with that thought, not knowing that in less than 2 weeks everything would change, not knowing that the girl with the tired eyes and the small smile would become the reason she would put herself between a bullet and another human being. The next few days passed in a strange new rhythm. Roxy did not seek Sadie out exactly, but there were moments, a nod in the hallway, a shared glance during English class, when Mrs. Patterson said something particularly profound about the difference between love and duty. A brief hey when they passed each other near the library. Small things, tiny moments, but to Sadie they were everything. She found herself making more effort with her appearance. using the McDonald's bathroom sink to wash not just her face, but her hair, trying to make herself look less like someone slowly disappearing from the world. She ate the food Mrs. Decker gave her more slowly, savoring it, feeling like maybe she deserved to enjoy it rather than just survive on it. On Friday, something changed. Sadie was at her locker between classes when she heard the voices behind her. Low, threatening, familiar. Vaughn slumming it now. Brock Riggs's voice carried that particular tone of casual cruelty that made Sadie's stomach tighten. Saw her talking to the car girl, the homeless one. Another voice. Tyler Holden, another linebacker. That is hilarious. Wonder if her daddy knows she is making friends with trailer trash. She does not live in a trailer, Brock laughed. She lives in a damn car in the Safeway parking lot. My uncle saw her there, said she has been there for months. No way. That is actually pathetic. I am serious. Ask her yourself. Hey, Boone. Sadie closed her locker slowly, her hands steady despite the panic coursing through her. She turned face carefully blank. Brock and Tyler blocked her path along with two other guys. Four of them. Four football players who outweighed her by 50 pounds each. Is it true? Brock stepped closer. You living in a car. That is rough. Sadie did not answer. Could not answer. Her throat had closed up completely. Where do you shower? How do you charge your phone? Oh, wait, you do not have a phone, do you? The others laughed. Students were stopping now, watching. That particular teenage instinct that drew crowds to cruelty. Leave me alone. Sadie managed her voice barely audible. Leave me alone, Brock mimicked in a high-pitched voice. What are you going to do? Cry about it in your car. Oh, wait, you probably do that every night anyway. Something inside Sadie cracked. Not broke, just cracked. And letting out a sliver of all the rage and pain and humiliation she had been swallowing for years. You do not know anything about me, she said clearly. Brock's expression darkened. What did you just say to me? You do not know anything about me. Sadie's heart was hammering now, adrenaline flooding her system. She knew this was stupid, knew she was making everything worse. But she could not stop. You have everything. Everything, and you spend your time making me feel like nothing because it makes you feel big. So leave me alone, Brock. Just leave me alone. The hallway had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now. Brock took a step forward, his fist already clenching, and Sadie braced herself for the impact, for the beating she knew was coming. Is there a problem here? Roxy's voice cut through the tension like a knife. She appeared beside Sadie, her expression calm but her eyes hard. Behind her, two other girls, her usual crew, flanking her like bodyguards. Brock hesitated. The calculus was visible on his face. Was it worth it to start something with Roxy Vaughn? With the daughter of Stone Vaughn? Just talking, Brock said, finally backing up a step. Looked like more than talking, Roxy's voice was still wrapped in silk. Looked like four guys cornering one. That is not talking. That is cowardice. You defending her? Tyler asked, incredulous. You know she is homeless, right? She lives in a... I know exactly where she lives, Roxy interrupted. And I know that she has got more guts in her little finger than all four of you combined. You want to start something. Start it with me. See how that works out for you. The threat hung in the air, unspoken but crystal clear. Touch her and you deal with my father. Touch her and 300 bikers will know your name. Brock looked at Sadie, then at Roxy, then back at Sadie. Whatever, she is not worth it. They left their footsteps heavy, their egos bruised. The crowd dispersed, disappointed there would not be a fight. Roxy turned to Sadie, and Sadie saw it in her eyes. The same look from the hallway days ago, but deeper now. Angrier. Come on, Roxy said quietly. I do not need. Yes, you do. Come on. Sadie followed her because she did not know what else to do. Her legs shaky, her adrenaline crash hitting her hard. Roxy led her to an empty classroom, closed the door, and turned to face her. You cannot do that, Roxy said, and her voice was shaking now. You cannot stand up to guys like that. They will destroy you. They already destroy me every day, Sadie shot back. What is the difference? The difference is now they know you will fight back, which means they will make it worse. You have to stay invisible. You have to. Roxy stopped. her hands balling into fists. Why did you not tell anyone? About living in your car? About who was I going to tell? Sadie's voice cracked. Who cares? I care. The words burst out of Roxy, surprising them both. She took a breath, visibly trying to calm herself. I care. Okay, I do not know why, but I do. And you cannot just let them tear you apart. Sadie stared at her. This girl who had everything, who lived in a world Sadie could not even imagine. And something inside her finally broke open completely. I am 16 years old, Sadie said, and her voice was raw now, all the walls crumbling. I have not had a real home in 2 years. I eat once, maybe twice a day if I am lucky. I have not slept more than 3 hours straight in months because every cop, every security guard, every man with a flashlight bangs on my window and tells me to move. I am failing classes I could pass with my eyes closed because I cannot focus through the hunger. I wear the same 3 shirts over and over because that is all I have. And every single day I have to pretend like I am fine, like I am normal, like I am not slowly disappearing from the world. So forgive me if I do not want to stay invisible anymore. Forgive me if I am tired of being nobody. Roxy's eyes were bright with unshed tears. You are not nobody, she whispered. Then what am I? She did not answer immediately. Then, you are the girl who bumped into me in the hallway and actually apologized, who asked if I was okay when nobody else notices anything is wrong, who knows every word of Jane Eyre and will not share it because you think you do not matter. You are not nobody, Sadie. You are just the only person who thinks you are. The bell rang, shrill and insistent, breaking the moment. I have to go, Sadie said, her voice thick. She needed to get out of this room, away from Roxy's kindness, before she completely fell apart. Wait, Roxy reached out her hand, catching Sadie's sleeve. Meet me after school, the parking lot behind the gym. Please. Sadie hesitated, then nodded, not trusting her voice. She spent the rest of the day in a fog, replaying Roxy's words over and over. You are not nobody. I care. The idea that someone that Roxy Vaughn of all people actually gave a damn about her was so foreign, so impossible, that Sadie did not know how to process it. After the final bell, Sadie made her way to the parking lot behind the gym, her heart hammering. Was this a setup, some kind of joke? But when she arrived, Roxy was there alone, leaning against a black SUV that probably cost more than Sadie would make in a lifetime. Hey, Roxy said softly. Hey. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Roxy reached into the SUV and pulled out 2 grocery bags. I got you some things. Food mostly, protein bars, fruit stuff that will not go bad. And there is a blanket in there, a warmer one. And a phone. It is just a cheap prepaid thing, but it works. My number is already in it. Sadie stared at the bags, something hot and painful lodging in her throat. I cannot take this. Yes, you can. Roxy, listen to me. She stepped closer, her eyes fierce. You helped me without even knowing it. Just by seeing me, by asking if I was okay. Nobody asked me that, ever. They see my dad's reputation, my last name, and they make assumptions. They think I have it all figured out, but I do not. I am drowning too, just in a different way. So let me help you, please. Sadie's hands trembled as she took the bags. They were heavier than she expected, full of food, supplies, kindness. Thank you, she whispered. There is something else. Roxy pulled out an envelope. I talked to Mrs. Decker. She is going to make sure you get lunch every day. No questions asked. And I talked to Principal Mercer. Do not worry, I did not say anything specific, just that you needed some support. He is going to connect you with a social worker. No, panic flared in Sadie's chest. No social workers. They will put me back in foster care. And I cannot. I will not go back there. I would rather live in my car than go back to that. Okay, okay. Roxy held up her hands. No social workers, but Sadie, you cannot do this alone anymore. You are going to burn out. You are going to. I am surviving, Sadie said firmly. That is enough. Roxy looked at her for a long moment, and Sadie saw the argument in her eyes, saw her fighting the urge to push harder. Finally, she nodded. Okay, but you have my number now. You use it, day or night. I do not care. You need something. You call me. Deal. Why are you doing this? Sadie asked. You do not even know me. Maybe that is why, Roxy said softly. Because you do not know me either. You do not see Stone Vaughn's daughter when you look at me. You just see Roxy, and I see Sadie, not some homeless kid everyone else ignores. Maybe we both need that. Sadie nodded slowly, understanding, crystallizing. They were both drowning in their own ways, both trapped by circumstances they could not control. Maybe that is what connection was. Not finding someone perfect, but finding someone who understood what it meant to barely keep your head above water. Deal, she said finally. Roxy smiled and it transformed her face, made her look younger, less burdened. Good. Now go home. Go to your car, eat something, use the phone if you need anything. Sadie walked back to her Civic carrying those bags like they held treasure. Because to her they did. That night, wrapped in the new blanket, eating a protein bar and an apple, she pulled out the cheap phone and stared at Roxy's number. She did not call, but knowing she could made all the difference. Over the next week, something shifted at Oak Haven High. Brock and his friends left Sadie alone, the threat of Roxy's intervention hanging over them. Other students started noticing her, not in a cruel way, but with curiosity. The girl Roxy Vaughn defended, the girl who might be more than she seemed. Sadie and Roxy did not broadcast their friendship, but they did not hide it either. They ate lunch together, sometimes sitting at the edge of the cafeteria talking about books and music and the strange weight of being 16. Roxy told Sadie about her father, about the expectations and the fear of never living up to the Vaughn name. Sadie told Roxy about her mother, about foster care, about choosing the uncertainty of the streets, because at least there she controlled her own fate. Mrs. Decker continued to load up Sadie's lunch tray, and Sadie stopped feeling ashamed when she ate. The cheap phone stayed charged in her car, a lifeline she had not known she needed. For the first time in 2 years, Sadie Boone felt like maybe, just maybe, she was not disappearing after all. There were small moments that week that Sadie would later return to in her memory, the way some people return to photographs. The way Roxy slid a granola bar across the lunch table without saying anything, eyes on her phone like she had not even noticed she had done it. The way Roxy waited for Sadie at the corner of the science wing on Wednesday after fourth period, leaning against a locker, pretending to scroll through something on her phone, but really watching for her. The way Roxy texted her at 10 at night on a Thursday with a picture of a stray cat she had found in a strip mall parking lot, and the caption, "Your spirit animal." The way Roxy never asked questions Sadie did not want to answer and never offered help Sadie did not want to receive. She just was there, like weather, like a roof. On Wednesday after school, they sat in Roxy's SUV in the parking lot and listened to a band Sadie had never heard of. Some woman with a voice that sounded like cracked glass singing about a town in Tennessee neither of them had ever been to. Roxy told Sadie that she had been driving out to that same parking lot for months just to sit, just to be somewhere that was not her father's house and was not her friends' houses and was not anywhere that knew her name. Sadie said she understood. They sat in silence for a while after that, the kind of silence that is its own conversation. Then Roxy turned the music off and asked Sadie what she wanted to be when she grew up. Sadie almost laughed. Nobody had asked her that in 3 years. Nobody had thought she had a future to want anything for. She said she did not know. Roxy said that was okay. She said she did not know either. She said that was something they could figure out. The word they sat in the SUV like a third passenger, like something Sadie was afraid to look at too long in case it disappeared. On Thursday, Sadie walked out of the cafeteria after lunch, and Mrs. Decker followed her with a paper bag. "There is a winter coat in there," Mrs. Decker said. "Belonged to my granddaughter. She outgrew it. Will not fit anyone in our family. I would have to throw it away. I just thought, well, if you knew anybody who could use one." Sadie took the bag. She did not say thank you. She did not need to. Mrs. Decker patted her arm and went back inside. Sadie wore the coat home. It was a deep navy blue. It had a hood that actually closed. The lining had a faint smell of vanilla that Sadie thought was probably some young girl's perfume. She slept in that coat that night. She slept warm for the first time in months. Then on a Tuesday morning, Sadie opened her locker and a folded piece of notebook paper fell to the floor. She picked it up, smoothed it out. The handwriting was shaky, small, almost ashamed of itself. You are the only person who ever picked up something I dropped. 6 months ago in the hallway by the chemistry lab, I dropped my chem book and you were the only one who stopped. You did not even know me. You just stopped. I never said thank you. I am saying it now. I know nobody sees me, but you saw me that day. So thank you for seeing me when nobody else does. Wyatt. Sadie stood there in the empty hallway holding that note. She did not remember it, did not remember picking up the book. She had done it on instinct, probably the way she did most things now. Survival had taught her to be small, but it had also taught her something else. Other people were drowning too. Other people were invisible too. She tried to picture Wyatt. The name was familiar, but the face would not come. A senior maybe. Quiet. The kind of kid who sat in the back and never talked to anyone. The kind of kid people would say later they never saw it coming. She folded the note carefully and slipped it into her bag. She would find Wyatt. She would thank him for the note. She would return the kindness. That is what she promised herself, standing there in the empty hallway alone with the dust motes and the fluorescent buzz. She would never get the chance. That Friday, Sadie and Roxy sat together in the cafeteria. Roxy was unusually quiet, picking at her food, eyes red. You okay? Sadie asked. Roxy did not answer for a long time. Then she set her fork down. Last night, she said softly, I almost did something. Sadie's stomach dropped. What? I drove out to the river, the bridge on Route 9. I stood up there for almost an hour. Sadie could not speak. I did not jump. Roxy's voice was barely audible. Because my phone buzzed. It was you. You sent me a stupid meme about a cat trying to read Jane Eyre. And I started laughing. Up there on the railing, I started laughing because of a cat meme. And I realized I had just talked to a girl that afternoon who has nothing. No home, no family, no reason to keep going. And she keeps going. She just keeps going. And I have everything and I was about to. So I climbed down. And I drove home and I did not sleep all night. But I am here. I am sitting here because of you. Sadie reached across the table and took Roxy's hand. Her own hands were shaking. I did not know. I know you did not. That is the point. You saved my life without even trying. So whatever happens, Sadie, whatever this thing is between us, I owe you. For the rest of my life, I owe you. Sadie did not know what to say. She had never been important to anyone before, never been the reason for anything good. The weight of what Roxy had just told her settled over her like a coat she did not know how to wear. Do not owe me anything, Sadie said finally. Just stay alive. That is all I want. Just stay. Roxy squeezed her hand and did not let go for a long time. That weekend, Sadie barely slept. She kept thinking about Roxy on the bridge. She kept thinking about Wyatt's note in her bag. She kept thinking about how many invisible people there were in that school, in that town, in that whole rotten world, and how the smallest things could be the difference between living and not. She made a decision lying in the back seat of that Civic on Sunday night. She was going to find Wyatt on Monday. She was going to thank him for the note. She was going to ask if he was okay. The way Roxy had asked her, she would never get the chance for that either. Monday morning came. Sadie woke up at 5:47, the parking lot lamp flickering above the Civic, the Oregon mist heavy on the windshield. She did her usual routine. McDonald's bathroom, toothbrush, cold water on her face, walked to school. Mrs. Decker had a breakfast sandwich waiting for her at the cafeteria back door. A small kindness in a town that mostly did not notice she existed. In first period calculus, she finally finished her homework, got a problem set right for the first time in months, smiled to herself, quietly, like she was getting away with something. In second period history, Mr. Davidson droned on about Gettysburg. Sadie's eyelids grew heavy despite her better sleep over the past week. She was jerking herself awake for the third time when the classroom door burst open. Principal Mercer stood there, his face grave. Mr. Davidson, I need to borrow your class for a moment. The energy in the room shifted immediately to that particular teenage instinct, that recognized when something was wrong. "We are implementing a new lockdown drill protocol," Mercer said, his voice carefully controlled. "I need everyone to listen very carefully to the instructions." But there was something in his eyes that made Sadie's stomach tighten. This was not a drill. "Active shooter protocols have been updated district-wide," Mercer continued. "In the event of an actual emergency, you will hear 3 short bells followed by an announcement. You are to immediately." 3 short bells cut through his words. The classroom froze for one horrible moment. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Mercer's face went white. "Lock the door," he said to Mr. Davidson, his voice sharp. "Now, lights off, everyone away from the windows." A gunshot cracked through the building, distant but unmistakable. Then another, then screaming. The classroom erupted into chaos. Students dove under desks, some crying out, others frozen in shock. Mr. Davidson fumbled with the door lock, his hands shaking so badly he could barely turn the mechanism. Sadie's heart slammed against her ribs. This was real. This was actually happening. "Under your desk now," Mercer barked, his principal voice cutting through the panic. "Silent. Phones off. Do not make a sound." Sadie crawled under her desk, her mind racing. Where was Roxy? What class did she have second period? Was she safe? More gunshots. Closer now. The screaming intensified, raw and primal. Sadie pulled out the phone Roxy had given her, her hands trembling so badly she could barely unlock it. "Where are you?" she typed. The 3 dots appeared immediately. She was looking at her phone. She was alive. Hallway, 2nd floor. Tried to get to classroom but door locked, hiding in alcove by water fountain. Sadie's blood turned to ice. 2nd floor hallway. Not in a classroom, not locked in somewhere safe. Just hiding in an alcove that offered no protection. No real cover. "Stay there, do not move. I am coming." "No, stay where you are, please." But Sadie was already moving. Her body made the decision before her mind caught up, driven by something primal and certain. Roxy was in danger. Roxy needed help. Nothing else mattered. The girl who had stood on a bridge 3 nights ago and almost let go. The girl who had laughed at a cat meme and chosen to live. That girl was in a hallway with a shooter, and Sadie was not going to let her die. "What are you doing?" Mr. Davidson hissed as Sadie crawled out from under the desk. "Get back." Sadie ignored him. She moved to the door, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. "Young lady, you cannot open that door," Mercer whispered urgently. "You will get yourself killed." "Someone is trapped out there," Sadie said quietly. "I have to help. The police are coming. You have to wait." She does not have time to wait. She saw the understanding dawn on Mercer's face. The pronoun she. This was not about heroics or stupidity. This was about someone specific. "Do not do this," Mercer said, but his voice had changed. He understood. He understood. And he could not stop it. Sadie unlocked the door as quietly as possible, her fingers somehow steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. She slipped into the hallway and closed the door behind her. Heard the lock click back into place. The hallway was a nightmare. Blood on the floor, lockers riddled with bullet holes. A backpack abandoned in the middle of the corridor with its contents spilled everywhere. A pink notebook, a water bottle, a photograph of someone's family. The emergency lights cast everything in a red glow that made it look like hell. Sadie heard crying coming from somewhere. A classroom maybe, or another hiding spot. She heard the shooter too, still moving through the building. The gunshots periodic and deliberate, not random. Hunting. She moved toward the stairs, keeping low, keeping quiet. Every instinct screamed at her to run the other way, to get back to the classroom, to save herself, but Roxy's face filled her mind. Her tired eyes, her small smile, the way she had looked at her when she had said, "I care." The stairwell was empty. Sadie climbed as quietly as possible, each step feeling like it took forever. At the 2nd floor landing, she paused, listening. Footsteps. Male, heavy, coming closer. Sadie pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing. The footsteps passed by the stairwell, moved down the main hallway. She waited 30 seconds, the longest 30 seconds of her life, then eased the stairwell door open. The 2nd floor hallway stretched before her. And there, 20 feet away, was Roxy. She was crouched in the alcove by the water fountain, pressed into the corner. Her phone clutched in her hand. Her face was white with terror, tear tracks on her cheeks. Ah, their eyes met. Roxy's expression shifted from fear to shock, to desperate relief, to new terror, all in the space of a heartbeat. She mouthed, "Go back." Sadie shook her head and started moving toward her, keeping low, keeping quiet. She was maybe 10 feet away when she heard it. Footsteps. Coming back. Coming fast. Roxy's eyes went wide. She pressed herself deeper into the alcove, trying to make herself invisible. But there was nowhere to go, nowhere to hide that was actually safe. Sadie made it to the alcove just as the shooter rounded the corner. Wyatt Holden. Sadie recognized him in that frozen second. The boy from the note. The boy in the back of every class. The boy who had thanked her for a kindness she did not even remember. He held a rifle, the weapon looking obscene in the bright hallway. His face was blank, emotionless, like he had gone somewhere far away inside himself. His eyes were red-rimmed, wild, searching. Those eyes landed on Roxy. "You," Wyatt said, his voice flat. "You are one of them, the ones who make the rest of us invisible." He raised the rifle. Sadie did not think, could not think. Her body moved on pure instinct, driven by something deeper than rational thought. She launched herself out of the alcove, her arms outstretched, her body a shield between Roxy and the gun. Time fractured, slowed. Sadie saw Wyatt's finger on the trigger, saw the barrel of the rifle aimed at Roxy's chest, saw the moment of confusion in Wyatt's eyes as Sadie appeared where no one should be. The rifle bucked. The sound was impossibly loud, a physical force that seemed to compress the air. The bullet hit Sadie in the chest, and the world exploded into white-hot agony. She had never been shot before, never imagined what it would feel like. It felt like being hit by a sledgehammer and set on fire at the same time, like her chest cavity had suddenly filled with broken glass and lightning. She went down hard, her body slamming into the floor. She heard Roxy scream, a raw animal sound of pure anguish, heard her scrambling, felt her hands on her. "Sadie, Sadie, stay with me, please. Just stay with me." Sadie tried to breathe and could not. Her chest would not expand. Blood filled her mouth, warm and metallic. She tried to tell Roxy to run, to get away, but no words came out. Through the gray fog descending over her vision, she saw Wyatt standing over them. The rifle still raised. The shooter's face had changed, the blankness replaced by something that might have been shock, or confusion, or the first crack in whatever had driven him to this. "Why?" Wyatt's voice broke. "Why would you do that for her? You do not even know her, not really. She is just another one of them." Sadie coughed, blood spattering her lips. She forced words out through the agony. "I know you," she whispered. Wyatt's hands began to shake. "You wrote me a note," Sadie said, each word a battle. "You wrote me a note about the chemistry book. I never said. I am saying it now. I see you." "Wyatt." The rifle began to lower. "Do not," Wyatt said, his voice thick with tears. "Do not you dare try to talk me out of it. You are dying. You jumped in front of a bullet for her. And you are dying. And for what?" "For everyone," Sadie whispered. "For everyone like us." "Wyatt, everyone like us." The rifle clattered to the floor. Wyatt's hands were empty now, shaking, reaching out towards Sadie and Roxy as if to undo what had been done. "I did not," he sobbed. "I did not want. I just wanted them to see me. I just wanted to matter." "You matter," Sadie said, and meant it, despite everything. Despite the bullet in her chest and the blood on the floor and the screaming still echoing through the building. Sirens wailed outside, getting closer. "You have to choose," Sadie managed. "You have to choose who you want to be when they get here." Wyatt looked at the rifle, at his empty hands, at Sadie's blood on the floor. Then he sank to his knees, hands behind his head, fingers laced, the way he had seen people do it in news footage, the way you surrender, the way you choose to stop. He stayed like that, sobbing, hands behind his head. As Sadie's vision faded, Roxy was pressing her hands against the wound, screaming for help. "Help, someone. She has been shot. She needs help. Boots thundered on the stairs. Voices shouted. Police. Tactical units. Someone in authority taking control. Sadie heard them before she saw them. Dark-clad figures with weapons drawn, moving with practiced precision. Officer down. No. Civilian down. Someone called. Gunshot wound to the chest. Get the paramedics up here. Now. Hands pushed Roxy aside. Gently, replaced hers with larger ones. With professional ones. Someone cut away Sadie's shirt. Someone else was talking into a radio using codes Sadie did not understand. Shooter on the ground. Surrendered. Cuffs going on now. You are going to be okay, a voice said near her ear. Male. Calm. The kind of voice that had seen this before and knew how to stay steady. Stay with us, kid. The paramedics are coming. Just stay with us. Sadie's eyes found Roxy in the chaos. She was standing a few feet away, held back by another officer. Her clothes soaked with Sadie's blood. Her face a mask of anguish. I am here, she called. I am right here, Sadie. Do not you dare give up. A paramedic appeared, materializing out of the chaos with equipment and urgent efficiency. Penetrating chest wound. Possible pneumothorax. We need to move her now. They lifted Sadie onto a stretcher, and the movement sent fresh agony shooting through her body. She tried not to scream and failed, the sound tearing from her throat. Sadie gasped out as they started moving her toward the stairs. I am coming with you, Roxy said, pushing past the officer who tried to stop her. You cannot stop me. I am coming with her. Miss, you need to stay here for questioning. I am Stone Vaughn's daughter, Roxy said, her voice taking on a tone Sadie had never heard before. Pure command, pure power. And unless you want 300 bikers descending on this hospital, you will let me ride with the air now. The officer hesitated, then nodded. Roxy grabbed Sadie's hand as they carried her down the stairs, her grip tight enough to hurt, grounding her, keeping her tethered to consciousness. The parking lot was controlled chaos. Ambulances, police cars, fire trucks, news vans already setting up, parents screaming for their children, students being let out in groups, everyone crying or in shock, or both. They loaded Sadie into an ambulance, Roxy climbing in right behind her. Her name is Sadie Boone, Roxy told the paramedic as they slammed the doors closed. She is 16. She saved my life. You have to save hers. The paramedic was already working, inserting an IV, checking vital signs, moving with practiced speed. We are going to do everything we can. What is your name, sweetheart? Roxy Vaughn. The paramedic's hands stilled for just a fraction of a second. Stone Vaughn's daughter. Yes, we will take good care of your friend. The unspoken promise was clear. If you are Stone Vaughn's daughter, this girl gets every resource we have. The ambulance lurched into motion, sirens wailing. Sadie felt the rhythm of it washing over her, felt Roxy's hand holding hers, felt the paramedic working to keep her alive. Tell me something, Roxy said suddenly, her voice desperate. Tell me about Jane Eyre. Tell me your favorite part. Sadie's lips moved, forming words she barely had breath for. When she comes back, after everything. She comes back to Rochester on her own terms. That is you, Roxy said, tears streaming down her face. You came back to me. You came back for me. So now you have to keep coming back, Sadie. You have to keep coming back. Your dad, Sadie tried to make a joke. Failed. My dad is going to thank you, Roxy said fiercely. My dad is going to move heaven and earth for you. You saved his daughter. That means you are family now. Whether you like it or not, you're family. The ambulance hit a bump and Sadie cried out as pain exploded through her chest. The paramedic barked something into a radio, adjusted something on the IV. The world was fading in and out now, reality becoming slippery. Stay awake, the paramedic commanded. Eyes open, Sadie. Talk to your friend. Stay awake. Cannot. Yes, you can, Roxy said. You survived foster care. You survived living in a car. You survived being invisible for 2 years. You can survive this. You have to survive this because I need you. So you fight, Sadie Boone. You fight like hell. The ambulance screamed through the streets and Sadie fought. She fought to keep her eyes open, fought to keep breathing, fought to hold on to Roxy's hand. She fought because Roxy asked her to, because Roxy needed her to, because maybe, just maybe, she had finally found something worth fighting for. The hospital appeared through the ambulance windows, a massive building that promised either salvation or goodbye. They pulled into the emergency bay and suddenly there were hands everywhere, voices shouting, equipment beeping, a whole team of people working to keep her heart beating. Roxy was pulled away and Sadie panicked, reaching for her, even though her arm barely moved. "I am here," Roxy called as they wheeled Sadie through the doors. "I am right here. I am not leaving. I am not going anywhere." The ceiling tiles flew past overhead, fluorescent lights making her squint. Faces appeared and disappeared. Doctors, nurses, people in scrubs, all moving with urgent purpose. 16-year-old female, gunshot wound to the chest, entrance wound left of sternum, no exit wound visible, vitals dropping. The medical jargon washed over her. They burst through doors into what must have been an operating room. Someone placed a mask over her face. "Count backwards from 10 for me, Sadie." She tried, got to 7, maybe 6. Then the darkness she had been fighting finally won, and Sadie Boone disappeared into a place beyond pain, beyond fear, beyond anything at all. Her last conscious thought was of Roxy's hand in hers, and how for the first time in her life, she had been somebody's reason to keep going. The anesthesia held Sadie in a dreamless void for hours, but consciousness crept back in fragments. First came sound, the steady beep of monitors, voices speaking in hushed tones, the soft squeak of shoes on linoleum. Then sensation, the weight of blankets, the tug of IV lines, the dull throb in her chest that promised worse pain waiting just beyond the edge of the medication. Sadie's eyelids felt like they had been glued shut. She fought to open them, managed a sliver of vision. White ceiling, fluorescent lights dimmed low, the acrid smell of antiseptic. She is waking up, a woman's voice, professional and calm. "Page Dr. Adler." Sadie tried to turn her head and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her entire torso, stealing her breath. "Easy, honey. Do not move yet. You are in the ICU at Portland General. You came through surgery, but you need to stay very still." Surgery. The word triggered memory. The hallway, the rifle, Roxy's face, the impact of the bullet. Sadie's hand moved instinctively to her chest. Found bandages, the bite of stitches beneath. "Roxy," she tried to say, but her throat was raw from the breathing tube. The word came out as barely a whisper. "The girl who came in with you, she has been here the whole time. Let me get her." The nurse disappeared, and Sadie lay there trying to piece together what had happened after the ambulance. How long had she been out? Was Roxy okay? Had anyone else been hurt? Footsteps approached, rapid and urgent. Then Roxy was there, leaning over her face pale and exhausted, but breaking into a smile that transformed her entire expression. "You are awake," she breathed. "Oh God, Sadie, you are awake." "How long?" "6 hours. You have been in surgery for 4 of them. The bullet collapsed your lung and nicked an artery. But they fixed it. Dr. Adler says you are going to be okay. You are going to be okay." She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. And Sadie realized she had never seen Roxy cry before. Not like this, not with relief. "You," Sadie whispered. "I am fine, not a scratch. Because of you." Roxy grabbed her hand, held it like a lifeline. "You stupid, brave, incredible girl. You could have died, worth it. Do not say that. Do not ever say that." But Roxy was squeezing her hand tighter, and Sadie could see in her eyes that she understood, that she would have done the same if their positions were reversed. A doctor entered, older woman with steel gray hair and steady hands. "Miss Boone, I am Dr. Sarah Adler. You gave us quite a scare. The bullet entered your chest cavity and caused significant trauma, but we were able to repair the damage. You are going to have a long recovery ahead of you, but barring complications, you should make a full recovery." "Other people?" Sadie asked. "The school. Dr. Adler's expression shifted, became more guarded. 7 students and 1 teacher were injured, 2 fatalities. A teacher and a junior named Bailey Cobb. The shooter was taken into custody after he surrendered. You are a hero, kid. What you did saved this young lady's life. And from what witnesses are saying, talking the shooter down saved many more. 2 dead. Sadie closed her eyes, feeling the weight of that knowledge settle over her. 2 people who would never go home, never graduate, never get another chance. And she had survived when they had not. Hey, Roxy's voice pulled her back. Do not do that. Do not blame yourself for being alive. I should have done more. You did everything. You saved me when you could have run. You talked to Wyatt when you could have stayed silent. You are the reason he surrendered instead of killing more people. Do not you dare diminish what you did. A commotion erupted in the hallway. Raised voices, someone arguing with security, boots heavy on the floor. Dr. Adler's expression tightened. That will be your father. My father, Sadie said weakly. I do not have a father, mine Roxy said quietly. The door burst open and Stone Vaughn filled the doorway. Sadie had heard about him, but nothing prepared her for the reality. 6'4", maybe 250 pounds of muscle and ink and barely contained violence. His leather vest bore the Hells Angels patch. His arms covered in tattoos that told stories of a life lived outside the law. His face was weathered, scarred. The kind of face that had seen things and done things most people could not imagine. Behind him stood 3 other bikers, all massive, all wearing the same patch. They filled the doorway like a wall of leather and danger. Stone's eyes found Roxy first, scanning her for injuries with the intensity of a man who had learned to assess threats instantly. Then his gaze shifted to Sadie, and Sadie felt the full weight of that stare. Measuring, evaluating, deciding, Dad Roxy said, stepping between them instinctively. This is Sadie, Sadie Boone. She is the one who saved me. Stone did not speak immediately. He moved closer to the bed and the room seemed to shrink around him. Sadie wanted to look away, but forced herself to maintain eye contact. If this was it, if Stone Vaughn was going to decide she was a threat, or unworthy, or just another street kid not worth the effort, Sadie would face it head on. You jumped in front of a bullet for my daughter. Stone's voice was gravelly, rough from years of cigarettes and shouting over motorcycle engines. Not a question, a statement. Yes, sir, Sadie said, her voice barely working. You know who I am. Yes, sir. And you did it anyway. Sadie did not know how to answer that. Finally, she is my friend. It was not about who her father is. Something shifted in Stone's expression. Not quite a smile, but a softening around the eyes. He looked at Roxy, then back to Sadie. How old are you, kid? 16. Where are your parents? The question hung in the air. Sadie saw Roxy tense, saw her preparing to defend her, to explain. But Stone held up a hand stopping her. Let her answer. My mother is dead, Sadie said quietly. Overdosed 2 years ago. I never knew my father. Been in foster care then on my own for the last 9 months. On your own meaning what? Living in my car. Stone absorbed this information without visible reaction. Then he turned to one of the bikers behind him. Bear, get me everything on this kid. Full background. Every foster home. Every caseworker. Everything. Stone Dr. Adler started. Not now, Doc. Stone's attention was back on Sadie. You saved my daughter's life. You understand what that means in my world. Sadie shook her head slightly. It means I owe you a debt. A life debt. And I always pay my debts. He moved closer, his voice dropping lower. I am going to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Can you do that? Yes, sir. What do you want? Money? A place to stay? New car? Name it. Sadie looked at Roxy, saw her watching with those green eyes that had first really seen her in the hallway weeks ago. Then back to Stone. I just want Roxy to be safe, she said. That is all I wanted when I ran into that hallway. I do not need anything else. For a long moment, the Stone Vaughn just stared at her. Then he did something Sadie never expected. He laughed. It was a rough sound, more bark than humor, but genuine. Roxy, where the hell did you find this kid? She found me, Roxy said. Or I found her. I'm not sure which. Stone pulled a chair over and sat down heavily, suddenly looking tired. Do you have any idea, he said quietly. Do you have any idea the kind of life you saved? I know she sees people when everyone else looks through them, Sadie said. I know she gave me food and a blanket and a phone when I had nothing. I know she is brave and kind and carries weight nobody else sees. That is all I need to know. Roxy's breath caught, her eyes filling with tears. Stone studied Sadie for another long moment. Then he stood, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot below. When he spoke again, his voice was different, rougher, more emotional. When I was 15, he said quietly, I had a little sister, 11 years old. Her name was Annie. Our daddy was a drunk and our mom worked 2 jobs and we mostly raised ourselves. One winter, Annie got sick, real sick, and we could not afford a doctor, could not afford medicine. I tried to keep her warm in our daddy's pickup truck while mom worked the night shift. He took a long breath. She died of pneumonia in the back seat of that truck 3 days before Christmas. The room was completely silent. I have been chasing that ghost for 37 years, Stone said, looking for the kid I could not save. And then my daughter calls me from a hospital and tells me a homeless girl who has been sleeping in a car took a bullet for her. He turned, looked at Sadie. So no kid. You do not get to tell me you do not need anything, because I owe Annie a debt I can never pay. And every kid like you is my chance to pay a little bit of it back. Sadie could not speak. So here is what is going to happen. You are not going back to that car. You are not going back to being alone. As of right now, you are under my protection. You understand what that means. She did not. Not really. But she nodded anyway. It means you are family now. It means if anyone touches you, they answer to me and 300 of my brothers. It means you get a real home, real food, real support. It means you matter, kid, whether you believe it or not. Mr. Vaughn, I cannot just... Stone. Call me Stone. And yes, you can. You do not have a choice. I told you I pay my debts. This is how I am paying mine. A nurse appeared in the doorway looking nervous about interrupting, but determined. I am sorry. Only 2 visitors at a time, and the patient needs rest. We are leaving, Stone said, then pointed at Roxy. You stay. Do not leave her alone. I was not planning on it. Stone nodded, then turned to Sadie one more time. We will talk more when you are stronger. For now, you heal. That is your only job. Understand? Yes, sir. Stone. The bikers filed out, their presence leaving a vacuum in the room. 2 days passed in a haze of pain and medication. Sadie healed. Roxy almost never left her side. Mrs. Decker came to visit, weeping. Principal Mercer came too. The mayor sent flowers. The news played her name everywhere. The flowers were the strangest part. They came from people Sadie did not know. Some of them came with notes. A woman in Eugene, who had also lost her mother to an overdose. A man in Bend, who said his daughter had been a year ahead of Wyatt Holden in middle school, and he had always wondered if anybody had ever asked her how she was doing. A church group in Beaverton, who had taken up a collection. A high school class in Idaho, who had each written a sentence on the back of a single card. Roxy read the cards aloud to Sadie when Sadie was too tired to hold them. Some of them made Sadie laugh. Some of them made her cry. All of them made her feel something she had not felt in years, which was the strange weight of being held in the thoughts of strangers. People she would never meet. People who had stopped their own lives for a minute to think about hers. On the second night late, when Roxy had fallen asleep in the chair, a nurse came in to change Sadie's IV. The nurse was older, mid-60s maybe, gray hair under a surgical cap, hands that moved with the easy competence of 40 years of practice. She did her work quietly. She did not chatter the way some of the younger nurses did. She just worked. Sadie watched her in the dim light and tried to think of something to say. "You've been doing this long?" Sadie asked. 41 years next month, the nurse said. Her name tag said Beverly Roth. Why? Beverly looked at her. Why what, honey? Why do you do it? After 41 years. Beverly finished taping the new line. She thought about the question. She did not rush her answer. Finally, she said, when I was 22, I had a baby boy. He was born too early. He lived for 9 days. The nurses in the NICU took care of him for me. They held him when I could not. They told me he was loved. They sang to him. When he died, one of them washed his body before they let me have him. She paused. I went to nursing school 3 weeks later. I do this because somebody did it for me. That is all. Sadie did not say anything for a long time. Then she said, I think that is the best reason I have ever heard. Beverly smiled. She squeezed Sadie's hand. She left the room. Sadie lay there in the dark and thought about how the world was built. Not by big things, not by speeches or laws or armies, by a nurse washing a baby, by a cafeteria worker pretending a cash register was broken, by a girl who picked up a chemistry book that another girl had dropped 6 months ago. The whole world, the whole damn world, held together by people who could not have explained why they did what they did, held together by the smallest things. But on the third morning, something changed. Sadie woke to the sound of raised voices in the hallway. She heard Stone's voice, low and dangerous. I do not give a damn what you say you are. You are not getting in this room. I'm her father. I have rights. The other voice was thin, rough, the voice of a man who had been smoking and drinking for too many years. Show me a paper that says different. Sadie's blood went cold. She knew that voice. She did not want to know it, but she did. It had been 12 years. But that voice had screamed at her mother in the kitchen of an apartment in Spokane when Sadie was 4 years old. That voice had told her she was a mistake. That voice had walked out the front door one night and never come back. Until now, Cole Boone, her father. The door opened a crack. Sadie heard Stone's voice harder than she had ever heard it. Get him out of my hospital, now. Sir, please, a nurse was saying. There are procedures, then follow them. Get this man out. But the man pushed past anyway. Past Stone, past the nurse. And he stood in the doorway of Sadie's hospital room and looked at her for the first time in 12 years. He was smaller than she remembered, stooped, his hair gone gray and thin, his face the texture of leather left too long in the sun. He wore a denim jacket missing buttons, and his eyes were the same as her eyes, pale green like dirty river water. He looked her over the way a man looks at a car he is thinking about buying. Hello, Sadie, he said. Long time. Stone moved to physically remove him. Sadie raised one hand, the smallest motion. It stopped Stone in his tracks. Why are you here? Sadie asked. Her voice was steady. She did not know how. Cole shrugged. Saw you on the news. My little girl. A hero. They are saying the state is going to give you 150,000, maybe 200, victims' compensation. He stepped further into the room. I figured a daughter ought to share with her old man. Sadie did not answer. I am still your legal guardian, Cole said. The state of Washington never terminated my rights. I checked. So whatever they give you, that money goes through me. He smiled. It was not a smile. I will be a good steward of it. Buy you some nice things. Stone took one step forward. Mr. Boone, you have 10 seconds to be on the other side of that door. Or what? You will hit me. In a hospital. With nurses watching. Cole grinned. I know who you are, biker. I know you have got priors. You so much as touch me and I get a restraining order. And then I get a judge to look at who is hanging around my daughter. He looked at Sadie. We will talk soon, baby girl. I will be in town. He turned and walked out whistling. Sadie did not realize she was shaking until Roxy's arms came around her. It is okay, Roxy was saying. It is okay. We will not let him. But it was not okay. Because for the first time since she had been shot, Sadie was more scared than she had been in that hallway. Wyatt Holden had pointed a gun at her. Wyatt Holden had pulled the trigger. But Cole Boone had walked into her hospital room with a smile, and she understood with absolute certainty that he was the more dangerous of the two. She started to cry. Stone stood at the foot of her bed, his fist clenched, his jaw working. Tell me what you need, he said. Whatever it is, tell me. Do not let him take me, Sadie whispered. Please, do not let him take me. I will not. Stone said, and his voice was a vow, not in this life, kid, not in this life. That night, alone in her hospital room with Roxy asleep in the chair, Sadie stared at the ceiling and let the truth of her situation settle over her. She had survived a bullet. She had survived a school shooting. She had been pulled out of invisibility into a kind of love she did not know how to receive. And now the one man whose blood she shared, the one man she had spent 12 years trying to forget, was at the door with his hand out. He had not come for her. He had come for the money. Outside the room, she could hear a Stone in the hallway, his voice low and urgent on the phone. Bear, find me the best family law attorney in Oregon. I do not care what it costs. Tonight. We move tonight. Sadie closed her eyes. The fight was not over. The fight had just begun. 2 weeks after the shooting, Sadie was discharged from the hospital. Dr. Adler had cleared her for limited activity. Light walking, no lifting, physical therapy 3 times a week. She still wore bandages across her chest, the stitches still pulling when she breathed too deep. But she was alive, and she was leaving. Stone had arranged everything. The hospital bills, all $123,000 of them, had been quietly absorbed. By whom Sadie was not supposed to ask. The board had voted unanimously to write it off as charity care. The state victims' compensation fund would cover the rest. Sadie owed nothing, which was a problem, because as long as the money sat anywhere with her name on it, Cole Boone was going to come for it. The morning of her discharge, Stone helped her into a wheelchair while Roxy carried her bag. They wheeled her down the hospital corridor and through the automatic doors, and Sadie's breath caught in her throat. The parking lot was full of motorcycles. Not just a few, hundreds. Gleaming chrome and leather and rumbling engines. Bikers stood by their machines, all wearing the Hells Angels patch, all waiting for her. What is this? Sadie breathed. This, Stone said, his voice thick with pride, is 300 of my brothers coming to welcome you home. In our world, when someone becomes family, the whole club acknowledges it. This is your acknowledgement. Roxy squeezed her hand. Told you it would be a surprise. They helped Sadie out of the wheelchair, steadied her as her legs adjusted to standing. Stone raised his hand and the rumbling engines cut off simultaneously, leaving sudden silence. Brothers, Stone's voice carried across the parking lot. 2 weeks ago, this girl put herself between a bullet and my daughter. She saved Roxy's life without hesitation, without thought for her own safety. In doing so, she earned not just my gratitude, but a place in this family. From this day forward, she is under club protection. Anyone threatens her, anyone harms her, they answer to all of us. Am I clear? Clear. The response was thunderous, unified, absolute. Stone turned to Sadie. You ready for your first ride? I have never been on a motorcycle. Then today you learn. Bear, bring it up. Bear, the massive biker with a graying beard, wheeled forward a smaller bike. He helped Sadie onto the back behind Stone, showed her where to put her feet, how to hold on. You are going to ride with me, Stone said. Just hold on and lean when I lean. Trust the bike. Trust me. Sadie wrapped her arms around Stone's midsection, felt the solid muscle and the rumble of the engine through her entire body. Roxy climbed onto another bike behind a biker named Razor, giving Sadie a thumbs up. Stone's engine roared to life. Then one by one, all the other bikes started until the air vibrated with the sound of 300 motorcycles ready to move. Let us go home, Stone said, and pulled out of the parking lot. The ride was unlike anything Sadie had experienced. The wind whipped past, the engine thrummed beneath her, and all around them rode the brotherhood, a moving wall of protection and acceptance. They moved through Portland streets, people stopping to watch, cars pulling aside to let them pass. Sadie's chest ached from the bullet wound, but she did not care. This moment, this feeling of belonging to something larger than herself, it was worth any pain. They rode for 30 minutes, heading out of the city into more rural areas. Finally, they pulled up to a large property, a sprawling ranch-style house surrounded by several outbuildings with enough land that the nearest neighbors were barely visible. The bikes parked in formation, engines cutting off one by one until only the wind remained. Stone helped Sadie off the motorcycle, steadied her as her legs wobbled. Welcome home, Stone said simply. Inside the house was warm and lived in. Leather furniture, a stone fireplace, photos on the walls of bikers and their families. Stone led Sadie down a hallway, opened a door. The room took Sadie's breath away. A real bed with an actual mattress and pillows. A desk with a new laptop sitting on it. A dresser full of clothes. She opened a drawer to check and found shirts, jeans, socks, everything. A bookshelf already lined with books, including a brand new copy of Jane Eyre. "It is too much," Sadie said, her voice cracking. "It is not enough," Stone countered. "But it is a start." That afternoon, Stone introduced Sadie to a woman named Marcia Holland, mid-50s, sharp eyes, a briefcase that looked like it had been carried into 1,000 courtrooms. "Marcia is the best family law attorney in the Pacific Northwest," Stone said. "She is going to handle the situation with your father." Marcia sat down across from Sadie at the kitchen table, her expression kind but professional. "Sadie, I need you to tell me everything you can remember about your father, when he left, what kind of contact he has had with you since, whether the state of Washington ever formally terminated his parental rights." Sadie took a breath. "He left when I was 4. He was drinking. He hit my mom. She told him to leave. He did. I never saw him again until 2 weeks ago in the hospital. He never paid child support, never sent a birthday card, never called. I do not even think he knew where we lived after we moved to Oregon. He did not show up when my mom died. He did not claim me when I went into foster care. I did not know if he was alive." Marcia was writing rapidly. "The state of Washington has procedures for terminating parental rights through abandonment. 12 years without contact almost certainly qualifies. But it has to be filed. It has to be argued. And until a judge signs off technically, he is still your father in the eyes of the law." "So what do we do?" Stone asked. "We file an emergency emancipation petition for Sadie. We argue abandonment to terminate his parental rights. And we file for Stone to be appointed as legal guardian." Marcia looked at Sadie. "The judge is going to ask you questions, Sadie. Hard questions. About what your life has been like. About why you do not want to live with your father. About what kind of guardian Mr. Vaughn would be. Can you do that? Can you tell the truth in front of a judge?" Sadie thought about it. About Cole Boone in the hospital doorway. About Cole Boone smiling about the money. "Yes," she said. "I can." The hearing was set for 3 weeks out. In those 3 weeks, Sadie healed. She started physical therapy. She started seeing a counselor named Dr. Maya Reynolds, a kind woman with a soft voice who did not push and did not judge. She went back to school for half days. Mrs. Decker hugged her so hard the second day back that Sadie cried in the cafeteria for the first time anyone could remember. Those first weeks at the Vaughn property had a strange shape to them. Sadie kept waking up confused. The bed was too soft. The room was too warm. The walls did not move when the wind blew. She would sit up in the middle of the night and have to remind herself where she was. She would walk down the hallway to the kitchen for water at 3 in the morning and find Bear sitting at the kitchen table reading a paperback. Bear, the man who looked like he could lift a truck off a child, reading a battered copy of a Louis L'Amour Western with his reading glasses sliding down his nose. He would look up at her and nod and not say anything. She would get her water. She would go back to bed. The next night, it would be Razor at the table working on a crossword puzzle. The next night, Diesel polishing a piece of leather. Sadie understood after a few nights that there was always somebody in the kitchen. Always. Stone had arranged it without telling her. He had put a brother on the kitchen every night so that if Sadie woke up scared, she would not be alone. He never said a word about it. He just did it. Roxy slept in a bedroom down the hall. Their doors stayed open. Sometimes in the middle of the night, Sadie would hear Roxy crying quietly into a pillow, and she would get up and walk down the hall and climb into Roxy's bed, and they would lie back to back without saying anything until they both fell asleep. The bridge on Route 9 was a thing they did not talk about during the day. It was a thing that lived in the dark hours, a thing that made Roxy's shoulders shake silently. Sadie did not try to fix it. She just stayed. She had learned from Roxy herself that staying was sometimes the whole job. Stone took Sadie out for a haircut in the second week. He drove her to a salon downtown, walked her in, sat in the waiting area with his arms crossed and his vest visible, and waited for 2 hours while a hairdresser named Sienna gave Sadie the first real haircut she had had in 3 years. Sienna did not ask questions. She just cut. She washed Sadie's hair twice. She rubbed her scalp with conditioner. She blew it dry with a real dryer and brushed it out with a real brush. When Sadie looked in the mirror at the end, she did not recognize herself. The hair was the same color, but it caught the light differently now. It moved. She looked like a girl who lived somewhere. She looked like a girl who had a future. Stone paid the bill. He tipped Sienna $100. He held the door for Sadie on the way out. He did not say anything about the haircut. He did not need to. The way he looked at her in the car on the way home was its own kind of saying. Dr. Maya Reynolds was an angel. That was the word Roxy used for her, and Sadie understood why. Maya was in her 40s with curly hair she wore loose in an office that smelled faintly of lavender. She did not have the usual therapist couch. She had two armchairs facing each other and a small table between them with a box of tissues and a candle that was never lit. Maya let Sadie sit in silence for an entire first session. She did not push. At the end of the hour, when the silence had stretched in 55 minutes, Maya said, "That was a good session, Sadie. I will see you Tuesday." Sadie went back. She kept going back. By the third session, Sadie was talking. By the sixth session, Sadie was crying. By the 10th, Sadie was sleeping through the night more often than she was not. The nightmares were worst about the foster father in Salem, not the shooting. The shooting came with images of Roxy alive at the end of it, and that took the worst edge off. But the foster father came with a different texture of dread. He came with a door frame. He came with the sound of his slippers in the hallway. He came with the particular way her own breath had sounded under her blanket while she had pretended to sleep the way a child plays dead and hopes the predator will lose interest. Maya helped her with that. They worked it slowly. They named what had been done and what had not been done and what could have been done and what almost was. Maya told her, "You trusted your body knew." That was a kind of wisdom most adults never learn. You were 15 and you were already smarter than the system that was supposed to protect you. The system failed. You did not. Sadie wrote those words down in her journal that night. She underlined them. The third day back at school was when Mrs. Decker pulled her aside. But it was the third day back that Sadie understood something she had not before. Mrs. Decker pulled her aside at the end of lunch. "There is something I never told you, Sadie." "What?" "Last spring, April, I was working the morning shift, putting out the breakfast trays. I went into the walk-in cooler to grab milk, and the door swung shut behind me. I was alone. Nobody knew I was in there, and my heart started doing something it should not. I could not breathe. I dropped. I was on the floor of that cooler thinking I was going to die. And then I heard a voice. I heard a knock, and someone pulled the door open. And it was you." "I do not remember that," Sadie said quietly. "I know you do not. You did not even know you saved me. You had been wandering through the kitchen, looking for the lost and found because you had left your sweater somewhere. You opened that cooler door, looking for a sweater, and I was on the floor having a heart attack. You called 911. You held my hand until the paramedics got there, and then you slipped away before anyone could ask your name." Mrs. Decker's eyes were full of tears. "I asked the principal who you were. I went through every yearbook. I found your picture. And from that day on, child, you ate free. Every day for the rest of your life if I had it my way. Because you did not know. You did not even know. You just opened a door because you needed a sweater. And you saved me." Sadie put her hand over her mouth. "I am telling you this," Mrs. Decker said softly, "because next week you are going to stand in front of a judge. And the judge is going to ask if anyone other than Stone Vaughn can speak to who you are. And I want you to know, I am going to be there. I am going to tell that judge exactly who you are. Because the world thinks they are giving you something. The world thinks they are rescuing you. They do not know that you have been rescuing them all along." Sadie could not speak. "You opened the door, baby. Now we open the door back for you." That night, Sadie sat on the porch of the Vaughn house with Roxy. The Oregon stars hung above them, cold and bright. "I keep thinking," Sadie said quietly, "about all the times something I did mattered to someone and I did not even know." "How many times do you think?" Sadie thought about it, about Wyatt's note, about Mrs. Decker on the cooler floor, about Roxy laughing on a bridge. "A lot," she said. "I think a lot. Maybe that is what it means to live, Roxy said. You do not see the half of what you do for people. You just do it. And it lands somewhere you did not expect. Some of it lands a long time later. Some of it lands when you are already gone. You do not get to know. You just do it anyway. The hearing came on a Tuesday morning. Stone wore the only suit Sadie had ever seen him wear. Roxy held her hand. Baron Razor and a biker named Diesel sat in the back of the courtroom in their leathers, attracting suspicious looks from the bailiff. Mrs. Decker arrived in her best Sunday dress. Principal Mercer arrived in a tie. Dr. Adler arrived in scrubs straight from a surgery. Mrs. Patterson, the English teacher, arrived with a folder of essays Sadie had never turned in, but had written in the back of her car anyway. Cole Boone arrived alone, with a public defender who looked like he had taken the case that morning. He smelled of cigarettes and yesterday's whiskey. Judge Wendell Pierce was a man in his 60s with white hair and the kind of face that had seen 10,000 sad stories. He opened the file, read it, looked at Cole, looked at Sadie, looked at the bikers in the back. This is going to be an interesting morning, he said. Marcia Holland argued the case for emancipation with the precision of a surgeon. She laid out 12 years of abandonment. She produced records from Washington State Child Protective Services showing Cole Boone had never once been contacted by Sadie's mother. She produced foster care records showing Cole had been notified by the state of Oregon when Sadie entered the system at 14 and had not responded. She produced a death certificate for Sadie's mother and a notarized statement from the funeral home that Cole Boone had been informed and had not attended. Then she called witnesses. Mrs. Decker took the stand. She told the judge about the day Sadie saved her life. She told the judge that Sadie ate one meal a day for 9 months and never asked for more. She told the judge that the day Sadie had been shot, Mrs. Decker had wept in the cafeteria so hard the assistant manager had to send her home. Principal Mercer took the stand. He testified that in his 30-year career, he had never seen a student demonstrate more courage than Sadie Boone had on the day of the shooting. He said that on the day she had walked out of his locked classroom to go save another student, he had aged 10 years. He said he would adopt her himself if Stone Vaughn were not standing right there. Mrs. Patterson took the stand. She read aloud from a notebook Sadie had left in her classroom by accident. An essay on Jane Eyre, 2 pages long, written in pencil. Some of the words smudged where rainwater had touched the paper. Mrs. Patterson read the essay all the way through. Then she set the notebook down and looked at the judge. This girl, she said, has more soul in her than any student I have ever taught. The system failed her. The school failed her. I failed her. And she still wrote this. In the back of a car, with a single pencil. Whatever you decide today, your honor decide it knowing what you have in front of you. The judge wrote something on his pad. Then Sadie took the stand. She had not slept the night before. Roxy had stayed in her room and they had not talked, but they had not slept. Now Sadie sat in the witness chair with the bandages still under her shirt, and she told the judge the truth. The courtroom was small, wood-paneled, the kind of courtroom that had heard 1,000 custody cases and 10,000 small tragedies. The American flag hung beside the judge's bench. The state flag of Oregon hung opposite. The light through the high windows fell in long slats across the floor. Sadie sat down in the witness chair and adjusted the microphone with hands that had stopped shaking somewhere between the doors and the stand. She had been afraid for 3 weeks of this moment, and now that the moment had come, the fear had left her. Some doors Sadie thought you walk through, and the fear stays on the other side. She looked at the judge. She did not look at Cole. She would not look at Cole again for the rest of her life. I do not remember him, she said. I have one memory of my father. I am 4 years old. He is yelling. My mother is crying. He is holding a beer bottle. I am hiding behind the couch. That is my one memory. After he left, my mother got a second job. We moved to Oregon. She got addicted to painkillers after a back injury. She died on the bathroom floor of our apartment when I was 14. I found her. I called 911. He was not at the funeral. He did not call. He did not write. He did not exist for me. I went into foster care. I ran away when I was 15 because a foster father was starting to look at me in a way I knew. I lived in my car for 9 months. I went to school. I ate 1 meal a day. I read books. I was invisible. A few weeks ago, I was shot. I was in a coma for hours. He did not come until the news said there was money. Then he came. He did not come for me. He has never come for me, He came for the money. She paused, took a breath. Stone Vaughn came for me. Not because he had to, not because of blood, because he wanted to. Because in his world, a debt is a sacred thing, and he believes he owes me one. He does not. He does not owe me anything. But he has fed me. He has given me a bed. He has paid for therapists I did not ask for. He has paid lawyers. He has made me family. And I am asking you, Your Honor, to let me stay with the family that chose me, not the family that left. The judge wrote on his pad for a long time. Then he looked at Cole Boone. Mr. Boone, the judge said, do you have anything to say? Cole stood. He cleared his throat. I made mistakes. I am her father. I have a right. Sit down, Mr. Boone, the judge said. The court has heard enough. He set his pen down. The court terminates the parental rights of Cole Boone effective immediately. The court grants the petition for emancipation. The court appoints Stone Vaughn as Sadie Boone's legal guardian until her 18th birthday. The court orders the victim's compensation fund to disperse all monies directly to a trust in Miss Boone's name, with Mr. Vaughn as trustee. The court further orders that Cole Boone is not to come within 500 feet of Miss Boone, the Vaughn residence Oak Haven High School, or any other location at which she is known to frequent. Violation will result in immediate arrest. Mr. Boone, if I see you in my courtroom again, you will leave it in handcuffs. Are we clear? Cole's mouth opened, closed. His public defender put a hand on his arm. We are clear, Your Honor, the public defender said. The judge banged his gavel. Sadie stood up from the witness chair on legs that did not feel like her own. The bailiff opened the gate. She walked out of the witness box and into the gallery, and Roxy was already crossing toward her, and Stone was rising from his chair. And as Sadie passed Cole Boone, she did not look at him. She did not say a word. She walked past him as if he were a chair, a coat rack, a piece of furniture in a room she was leaving. In the hallway outside the courtroom, surrounded by the bikers and her teachers and the cafeteria worker, who had once been saved by a girl looking for a sweater, Sadie stood very still. Stone put his hand on her shoulder. How do you feel, kid? I feel like I just got born, she said. He almost laughed. Then his face changed. He turned. His brothers had stiffened. Sadie turned too. Cole Boone was standing at the far end of the hallway. He had not left. He was watching them. And his eyes were not the eyes of a man defeated. They were the eyes of a man calculating. Sadie felt the cold of the hospital again, the cold of his smile. Stone took one step toward him. No, Sadie said, do not. Stone looked at her. Do not, she said again. Do not give him anything, not even a fight. He gets nothing from us. He gets nothing. Stone's fists unclenched. He nodded once. He turned his back on Cole Boone and walked Sadie out of the courthouse. The bikers followed. None of them looked back. They did not have to. Cole Boone was not there anymore. He had never been there. Sadie had finally understood that. He was a ghost. He had been a ghost her whole life. The only difference was that now she was the one who could choose not to see him. 2 weeks later, Wyatt Holden pled guilty. 25 years with the possibility of parole after 15. Sadie attended the sentencing. When the judge asked if any of the victims wished to make a statement, Sadie stood up. The courtroom that day was a different kind of room than the one her custody hearing had been in. This room was full. Every seat. The families of the dead were in the front rows. Bailey Cobb's parents, the teacher's widow, and her 3 grown children. Their grief had a weight that made the air thick. Sadie had to walk past them to get to the lectern. She did not look at them. She could not. She would never be able to. There was a kind of mathematics in that room that did not balance and never would. 2 lives, 1 bullet stopped, 1 shooter still standing, her own breath in her chest, their losses on the front bench. Sadie carried that imbalance every day. She would carry it for the rest of her life. Wyatt, she said, look at me. He raised his head. His face was thin. His hair had been cut for court. His eyes were the same eyes she had seen in the hallway, drowning. I read your note, she said, the one in my locker. I never got to thank you for writing it, so I am thanking you now. You saw me when nobody else did. You took the time to find a piece of paper and a pencil, and you wrote to a stranger about a moment that mattered to you. That is not the act of a monster. That is the act of a boy who was drowning and reaching. I wish I had reached back sooner. I wish I had found you in those hallways. I wish I had asked if you were okay. I did not, and 2 people died, and 6 others got hurt. And I took a bullet, and you are going to prison for a long, long time. None of that goes away because we both wanted to be seen. None of that. She paused. But I will not pretend that you are nothing to me. I see you, Wyatt. I will keep seeing you. And when you get out, if you get out, I want you to be a man who pulls people back from the edge of what you walked into. That is the only way you can begin to pay back what you took. The only way. You hear me? Wyatt nodded, tears running down his face. He could not speak. That is all, Your Honor, Sadie said, and sat down. The judge banged his gavel. Afterward, in the hallway outside, Bailey Cobb's mother approached Sadie. She was a small woman with red eyes and a wedding ring she had been twisting all morning. She stopped a few feet away. She did not know what to do with her hands. I do not know what to say to you, the woman said. My daughter is dead, and you are alive, and you saved a girl I do not know, and I do not know what to do with any of that. Sadie did not answer right away. She felt Stone behind her, his presence steady. She felt Roxy beside her, holding her hand. I am sorry, Sadie said finally. I am so sorry about Bailey. I did not know her. I wish I had. I wish I had been quicker. I wish I had been smarter. I wish the bullet that hit me had been the only bullet that day. I think about her every morning when I wake up. I do not have words that will help you. I will never have those words. But I want you to know that I will spend the rest of my life trying to make sure no other parent stands in a hallway like this one. That is the only promise I can keep. The woman cried. She did not move closer. She did not move away. After a while, she nodded. She walked away. Sadie watched her go. She knew she would never see her again. She knew she would carry her face for the rest of her life. She walked back out into the parking lot with Stone and Roxy on either side of her. The bikers were waiting by their machines. The Oregon sky was gray. The wind smelled like rain. The Sadie Boone Youth Foundation was announced 6 weeks after the shooting. $1 million endowment. An anonymous donor. Programs for homeless youth foster youth students living in cars and on couches and in shelters. Identification and outreach through every public school in Multnomah County to start. Then more. Stone did not admit to providing the money. He never would. He did not have to. Sadie became the face of the foundation. She had refused a medal at City Hall. The mayor had presented it anyway. She had refused to keep it. She had walked to the front of the podium and given the medal to Mrs. Decker, who had received it sobbing, and the photo of that moment had gone around the country in 24 hours. The cafeteria worker holding the medal, the girl who had given it to her. The headline read, "She gave the medal to the woman who had been giving her food." In her speech at City Hall, Sadie said this, "There is a girl in every school in this country who is sleeping in a car. There is a boy in every school in this country who has not eaten in 3 days. There is a kid in every classroom in this country who has been written off, looked past, made invisible by 1,000 small acts of not seeing. You will not save them with medals. You will not save them with ceremonies. You will save them by paying attention, by asking the quiet kid if she is okay, by giving the homeless kid an extra carton of milk and pretending the register is broken, by writing a note in someone's locker that says, 'I see you.' That is all the heroism the world is asking of you. The rest of us will take care of the bullets." The crowd stood for a long time after that, some of them weeping, most of them silent. Stone stood at the back of the hall with his brothers and watched his daughter watch her sister speak. And he did not say anything. He did not have to. On Sadie's 17th birthday, the Vaughn property filled with 300 motorcycles for the second time. The bikers came with presents, with food, with an overwhelming amount of love a girl raised on car heaters and parking lot lamps did not know how to absorb. Mrs. Decker came. Principal Mercer came. Dr. Adler came. Roxy had made a cake that was lopsided and slightly burned and the most beautiful thing Sadie had ever seen. Stone gave Sadie a leather jacket. Not the full club patch, not yet, but a smaller patch hand stitched by Bear's wife that marked her as protected family. "You are one of us now," Stone said, his voice thick. "And when you turn 18, if you want it, there is a place for you in this brotherhood. No pressure. Just know that you will always have a home here." Sadie looked at the faces around her, Bear and Razor and Diasel, and dozens of others who had become her family. She looked at Roxy, who had started everything by asking if she was okay. She looked at Stone, who had taken a broken girl and given her a reason to believe in family again. "I am already home," Sadie said simply. The celebration lasted until dawn, and as the sun rose over the property, Sadie and Roxy sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the sky turn from black to navy to the soft orange of an Oregon morning. Sadie touched the scar on her chest, the leather bracelet on her wrist, the small patch sewn into her jacket. 1 year ago, she had been nobody, invisible, disposable, convinced her life had no value beyond survival. Now she was Sadie Boone, daughter of a chosen father, sister of a girl who had laughed on a bridge instead of jumping, voice for kids who had no voice, proof that rock bottom was not the end but sometimes the beginning. She was loved and protected and valued not for what she could provide, but for who she was. "You know what I keep thinking," Roxy said softly. "What?" "If you had not bumped into me in that hallway, you would still be in your car, and I would be at the bottom of the river, and Mrs. Decker would have died in the cooler, and Wyatt would have killed more people, and none of these 300 men out here would know your name. All of it, all of it, because of a girl who said sorry when she dropped my books." "The smallest things," Sadie said. "The smallest things," Roxy agreed. They sat in silence as the sun climbed higher. Behind them in the house, 300 bikers were sleeping off a party, the Hells Angels of the Pacific Northwest. Men feared by anyone who knew their reputations. Men who would, every single one of them, die for a homeless girl they had not known 6 months ago. The bullet that should have ended her life had instead given her one worth living. The girl she had saved had become the sister of her heart. The biker who had sworn a debt had become the father she had never had. And the girl who had once slept in a car, invisible to the world, had found exactly where she belonged, surrounded by 300 motorcycles, wrapped in leather and loyalty, held together by the unbreakable bonds of chosen family. Sadie Boone was finally completely undeniably home, and nothing in this world would ever make her invisible again. The weeks after the foundation launch became something Sadie had not anticipated. Letters started arriving at the Vaughn property, hundreds of them, then thousands. A girl in Tennessee wrote that she had been sleeping in a janitor closet at her high school for 4 months, and her counselor had finally noticed because of a news clip about Sadie. A boy in Florida wrote that he had been about to walk into a school with his stepfather's pistol and had stopped only because he had seen a video of Sadie's speech the night before. A grandmother in Ohio wrote that she had taken in 2 of her neighbor's kids after their mother had overdosed because of a story about a homeless girl who had survived. Stone read every letter. He sat at the kitchen table in the mornings with his coffee and a stack of opened envelopes, and he read them. Sometimes Sadie would come down for breakfast and find him crying. Quietly, the way a man cries when he has been crying for 37 years and finally has somewhere to put it. He never tried to hide it. He just looked up at her and nodded and went back to reading. And Sadie understood that those letters were not just for her. They were for Annie. Every kid pulled back from the edge was a small payment on a debt that could not be paid. There was one letter Stone kept on his nightstand. It was from a man in Arkansas, 67 years old, a Vietnam veteran who had not spoken to his estranged daughter in 12 years. He had seen Sadie's speech on the local news in Little Rock. He had picked up his phone for the first time in over a decade and called his daughter. They had talked for 4 hours. They were going to meet in person at Thanksgiving. The man wrote that he did not know how to thank a girl he would never meet for giving him back something he had buried alive. He said he had been thinking about ending his life. He said the speech had stopped him. He said he hoped Sadie understood that she had saved more than one daughter. He hoped she understood that she had saved an old man too. Stone read that letter to Sadie one morning over breakfast. He could not get through it without stopping. When he was done, Sadie did not say anything. She got up. She walked around the table. She kissed the top of his head the way a daughter kisses a father. She walked outside. She sat on the porch and cried until the sun cleared the trees. In May, 6 weeks after the courtroom, Marcia Holland called the house. Cole Boone had been arrested in Salem. He had been driving drunk. He had also been in possession of stolen tools and a pistol he was not legally allowed to own as a felon. He was going back to prison for a minimum of 4 years. Marcia said it like it was nothing, like it was the weather report. But Sadie sat down on the kitchen floor and breathed for the first time in what felt like months. Stone found her there. He did not say anything. He just sat down on the floor next to her, a man his size lowering himself to the linoleum. They sat in silence for a long time. Then he put his arm around her shoulders and let her lean against his side. And she did. For the first time in her life, she leaned into a father. She had a long way to go. The nightmares did not stop. Dr. Maya Reynolds was patient with her. They talked about the hallway. They talked about her mother's bathroom floor. They talked about the foster father in Salem who had started watching her differently. They talked about Cole's smile in the hospital doorway. And slowly the bad nights became less frequent. Slowly Sadie stopped flinching when a door slammed. Slowly she started to believe that the people around her were not going to disappear. She went back to school full-time in May. Her grades came up. Mrs. Patterson started a small reading group on the side just for Sadie and 4 other students who had stayed in the back of every class. They read books together. They wrote essays. They talked about how a story could save your life. Brock Riggs approached Sadie in the hallway one afternoon, his face red, his hands shoved in his pockets. He said he was sorry. He said it badly, but he said it. Sadie did not forgive him. She did not need to. She just nodded and walked away, and the hallway felt a little wider behind her. Roxy started going to therapy too, not with Dr. Reynolds, but with someone who specialized in adolescence. She stopped wearing the leather jacket every day. She started laughing more. Real laughs, the kind that came from her belly. She told her father about the bridge on Route 9, and Stone wept openly in front of his daughter for the first time in her memory. He did not yell. He did not blame her. He just held her for a long time and told her that if she ever felt that way again, she was to come find him. Wherever he was, whatever he was doing, she was to come find him. And Roxy promised and meant it. The foundation grew. Other counties asked to be part of it. 2 state senators called Stone to ask if Sadie would speak in front of the state legislature. She said yes. She wrote the speech herself. She did not let anyone edit it. She stood in front of the Oregon State Senate in a borrowed dress and a pair of sneakers because she refused to wear heels. And she told them about Mrs. Decker pretending the cash register was broken. She told them about a quiet boy named Wyatt who had written a note in her locker before he wrote a different kind of note in his bedroom. She told them about how every kid in this state who is invisible right now is somebody's hero waiting to happen, and the only thing standing between them and a different ending is whether anyone bothers to see them. The state Senate passed a bill that summer. They called it the Boone Bill. It funded outreach workers in every public school in Oregon. Sadie did not attend the signing ceremony. Stone went in her place. He shook the governor's hand and brought home a pen. In June, Wyatt Holden's mother showed up at the Vaughn property. A small woman, mid-40s, hair gone gray. The look of a woman who had been carrying something heavy for a long time. Bear stopped her at the gate. She did not try to push past him. She just held up a letter and asked very quietly if Sadie might be willing to read it. Sadie read it on the front porch with Stone watching from the doorway. The letter was from Wyatt. He had been writing it for weeks. He thanked her. He apologized. He told her about the boy he had been before he became the boy with the rifle. He asked her if she ever felt able to come visit him in prison. He said he had been reading. He said he had been talking to the chaplain. He said he wanted to be a different man someday, and he did not know if he could, but he wanted to try. Sadie folded the letter carefully. She thought about it for a long time. Then she told Mrs. Holden that she would visit him. Not soon, but someday. And she would bring books, and she would not promise more than that. Mrs. Holden cried on the porch of a biker compound while a man named Stone Vaughn watched from the doorway and said nothing. And Sadie thought somewhere in the back of her mind about how grief stripped people down to the same animal. Stone in his vest, Mrs. Holden in her cardigan. Both of them missing somebody. both of them trying to understand a child who had been drowning in plain sight. That night, Sadie sat on the porch with Stone. The Oregon stars were sharp above them. "Annie," Sadie said quietly. Stone looked at her. "Tell me about her," Sadie said. "The real her, not the ghost. What was she like?" Stone was quiet for a long time. Then he started to talk. About a little girl who collected pine cones in her pockets and could not pronounce her R's until she was 9, and who used to climb into his bed when their daddy was yelling. About a kid who had wanted to be a veterinarian. About a kid who had laughed at her own jokes before she could finish telling them. About a kid who had been her brother's whole heart and then his whole guilt for 37 years. He talked for an hour. When he was done, the porch was quiet except for the cicadas. "Thank you," Sadie said. "For what?" "For letting her be a girl, not just a debt." Stone looked at her, his eyes wet. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, kid." They sat for a long time after that. Two people who had loved girls who had not made it. Two people who had decided to keep going anyway. The summer rolled through. The foundation hired its first 3 caseworkers. Roxy got her driver's license and immediately drove Sadie to the coast, and they sat on the beach at Cannon Beach until the sun went down, and then they drove home with the windows open and the music too loud. Sadie took swimming lessons because she had never learned how. She learned how to ride a motorcycle in the back field of the Vaughn property, with Bear teaching her and Stone, watching with his arms crossed and his mouth doing something that was almost a smile. She filled out an emancipation form, and the state of Oregon stamped it, and she sent a copy to Marcia just to look at it. She started a journal. She wrote in it every night. Most of what she wrote was small. The weather, what Mrs. Decker had made for dinner, a line she had liked from a book. But sometimes she wrote bigger things, about being seen, about being loved, about what it costs to keep going when there is no reason to. She wrote those entries slowly, with pencils, the way she had written everything since the back seat of the Civic. In July, Sadie sold the Civic. She did not need it anymore. She did not want anyone else driving it either. She and Stone drove it to a junkyard outside Hillsboro, and she sat in the back seat one last time and said goodbye to it. She said goodbye to the cold and the parking lot lamps and the security guards' flashlights. She said goodbye to the version of herself that had slept curled around a sleeping bag praying for morning. She thanked the car. She got out. She watched a man named Earl crush it into a cube. She cried the whole way home. Stone did not say anything. He just drove. When they got back to the property, he carried her into the house, all 6'4" of him, carrying a 16-year-old girl who had been smaller than him and bigger than the world, and he set her down on the couch, and Roxy made her tea, and the day ended. The Civic was gone. The girl who had lived in it was not. She had only been waiting to be let out. There were other markers that summer, small ones. Sadie went to a dentist for the first time in 5 years. She had 3 cavities. The dentist did not lecture her. She just fixed them. She told Sadie that she had good teeth and that she should be proud of herself for taking care of them as well as she had under the circumstances. Sadie cried in the dentist's chair. The dentist handed her a tissue and waited. The bill was paid before Sadie ever saw it. She got glasses. She had not known she needed them. A free vision screening at the Foundation's first open house revealed that Sadie had been squinting at chalkboards for years. The frames Roxy picked out for her were small and round and made Sadie look like a girl who read a lot of books, which was, after all, true. The first day she wore them to school, Mrs. Patterson looked at her and laughed and clapped her hands and said, "Oh, Sadie, you look exactly like a Bronte sister." Sadie wore the glasses every day after that. She got a doctor, a real one. Not just Dr. Adler, who had cut a bullet out of her chest, but a primary care physician named Dr. Hollis, who did blood work and vaccinations and talked to her about things teenage girls were supposed to talk to doctors about. The blood work came back showing she was anemic and vitamin D deficient and slightly underweight, which were the predictable consequences of 9 months of 1 meal a day in a parking lot. Dr. Hollis put her on supplements. She told Sadie to come back in 3 months. She told Sadie that her body was going to spend the next year rebuilding itself and that she should be patient with it. Sadie thanked her. She took the supplements. She gained 8 pounds by the end of summer. Her hair grew thicker. Her skin cleared. Her body, against all odds, started to look like the body of a 16-year-old girl who had been loved her whole life, as if it had been waiting too, as if it had only needed permission. In August, on a Saturday morning, a knock came at the Vaughn front door. Sadie answered it. A young woman stood there, maybe 19, maybe 20. She had a baby on her hip and a bruise across her cheekbone, the color of an overripe plum. She did not say anything at first. She just looked at Sadie like she had been looking for her for a long time. "I saw you on TV," she said finally. You said if we needed help, we could come." Sadie did not say anything. She just stepped aside. She opened the door wider. The woman came in with her baby. Stone was already moving. Roxy was already on the phone with Marcia. Mrs. Decker was already pulling food out of the freezer at her own house 20 miles away because Stone had called her. By dinner time, the woman and her baby had a place to stay, and a caseworker, and clothes, and a number to call if she got scared. By the end of the week, she had a job at a diner where one of the biker's wives waitressed. By the end of the month, she had a small apartment of her own. That was the day Sadie understood what the foundation was actually for, not the speeches, not the headlines, not the medals she had given away. This, a door opening, a girl walking through it, a house full of people who knew how to keep her from falling. On a Tuesday in September, almost 6 months to the day after the shooting, Sadie walked back into Oak Haven High for the start of her senior year. She wore the leather jacket Stone had given her, the small patch on the chest. Her sneakers were new this time. She had a backpack with actual notebooks in it. She walked into the cafeteria at lunch, and Mrs. Decker was at her usual station, and there were 3 other kids sitting at the table closest to the kitchen. 3 kids Sadie recognized by their hunched shoulders and their downcast eyes. 3 kids who had been invisible until somebody decided to start seeing them. Sadie sat down at their table. She did not say much. She did not have to. The 4 of them ate. Mrs. Decker stood at the counter and watched and pretended she was not crying. One of the kids was a girl named Hazel, 14 years old. She had been couch surfing since the spring. Her aunt had kicked her out for reasons Hazel did not want to talk about. The foundation had placed her with a host family in the district. She came to school with clean clothes now. She was already getting B's in English. The second kid was a boy named Knox, 16. He had been sleeping in his grandmother's storage unit for the past 4 months because his mother's boyfriend had been hitting him. The foundation had moved him in with his grandmother permanently. He was eating 3 meals a day. He had put on 12 pounds since August. The third kid did not give her name. She came every day to lunch, and she ate, and she did not speak. Sadie did not push her. She just sat next to her. Day after day, eventually the girl would talk. Or she would not. Either way, Sadie would still be there. After lunch, Sadie went to her locker. There was a note inside, folded, small, handwriting she did not recognize. "You do not know me," the note said, "but my older brother used to sit in the back of every class. He killed himself last year. Nobody noticed for 2 days. I have been invisible too. I saw you on TV. I read your speech in English class today. I just wanted you to know somebody is reading what you say. Thank you." There was no name. Sadie folded the note, put it in her bag, walked to her next class. Outside the window, the leaves were starting to turn. Oregon in September. She had spent the previous September in a car, the cold seeping through the windows, counting coins for breakfast, reading by the parking lot lamp. And now she was here, with a note in her bag from a stranger, with a family waiting at home, with 300 motorcycles that knew her name, with a foundation that was opening doors all over the state, with a friend who had not jumped, with a man whose ghost of a sister had found a kind of peace at last. "You do not see the half of what you do for people," Roxy had said on the porch on her birthday. "You just do it, and it lands somewhere you did not expect." Sadie touched the small patch on her chest. She touched the leather bracelet on her wrist. She touched the scar that was still pink and tender under her shirt. She looked out the classroom window at the Oregon afternoon, and for the first time in a long time, she understood that being seen was not the same as being saved. You could be seen and still be drowning. You could be shy and still be invisible. The work was different. The work was harder. The work was a million small openings of doors, a million small noticings, A million small acts of not looking away when looking away would be easier. That was the work, and she was going to spend her life doing it. Not because of the bullet, not because of the medal, not because of the foundation, because of a cafeteria worker who had pretended a register was broken, because of a girl on a bridge who had laughed at a cat meme and decided to climb down, because of a quiet boy whose note had come too late, because of a man who had carried a dead sister for 37 years and finally got to put her down. The bell rang for fifth period. Sadie picked up her bag. She walked into history class. She sat down. She raised her hand when the teacher asked a question. She answered. She got it right. She did not look around to see if anybody had noticed. She did not need them to. She had been seen. She had done the seeing. And the world, against every prediction Sadie Boone had ever made about it, kept turning, kept opening, kept handing her one small grace at a time, the only thing she had ever really wanted, a life worth staying for. That night, Sadie sat at the desk in her room at the Vaughn property and opened her journal. The lamp was warm. The window was open a little. The organ air smelled like dry grass and cooling stone. Roxy was already asleep down the hall. Stone was somewhere in the house walking the way he walked when he was thinking slow, heavy footsteps on the hardwood floor. Sadie picked up a pencil. She thought for a long time. Then she wrote, "If you are reading this and you are sleeping in a car, if you are reading this and you are hungry, if you are reading this and you are sitting on a railing somewhere thinking about letting go, if you are reading this and you are invisible and you have been invisible for a long time, I want you to know something. I do not know your name. I do not know your face. I do not know what you have been through to get to this page. But I know one thing. I know that the smallest thing somebody did for you yesterday or a year ago or 6 months ago, somebody picking up a chemistry book or sliding a sandwich across a counter or asking if you were okay when nobody had asked in years, that thing mattered. It mattered to you. I know because I am you. I lived in a car for 9 months, and I read books in a parking lot, and I thought I was nothing. And then one day a girl bumped into me in a hallway and apologized, and it turned out I was something. I had been something the whole time. I just did not know. You are something too. You have been something the whole time. You just have not been told. I am telling you now. Stay. The world does not need you to be brave. It just needs you to stay. Stay until the next small thing lands. Stay until the next person sees you. Stay long enough to be a person who sees somebody else. That is the only job. Stay. You are not nobody. You have never been nobody. You are just the only person who thinks you are. She read it over. She closed the journal. She put her pencil down. She turned off the lamp. The Oregon stars came in through the window. Somewhere in the field behind the house, a coyote called once then was silent. Somewhere in the kitchen, Stone made a pot of coffee for whoever was on watch that night. Somewhere down the hall, Roxy turned over in her sleep and murmured something Sadie could not hear. Sadie lay back in her bed. She closed her eyes. She put one hand on her chest over the scar the way she had started doing every night without thinking about it. The skin was warm. The heartbeat under it was steady. The whole house was breathing around her. She slept. In the morning, she would get up and put on her glasses and walk into the kitchen, and Stone would pour her coffee without asking if she wanted any. Roxy would come down in her pajamas and steal a piece of bacon off Sadie's plate. Mrs. Decker would call to ask what they wanted her to bring for Sunday dinner. Bear would be reading a paperback at the table. The bikers would come and go through the kitchen the way bikers came and go through kitchens. Letters would arrive in the mailbox. Phones would ring. Somewhere in Oregon, a kid in a parking lot would be opening a sandwich a cafeteria worker had slipped to her, and that kid would not know yet that she was not alone, and that was okay. She would find out. She would find out the way Sadie had found out. One small grace at a time, one open door at a time, one stranger's hand reaching across the table at a time. The world was built that way. Sadie understood it now. The world was built by people too small to know they were building anything. By people who picked up books that had been dropped. By people who pretended cash registers were broken. By people who sat on bridges and laughed at cat memes and decided to climb down. By people who carried dead sisters for 37 years and then carried living daughters home from hospitals. The world was built by people who stayed, just kept staying, just kept opening doors. Sadie Boone slept in a real bed, in a real house, surrounded by real people who loved her. The bullet that had passed through her chest had not killed her. It had only shown her in a way nothing else ever could have that her life had been worth saving from the moment she was born. The world had been slow to notice, but the world had noticed. And Sadie was going to spend every day she had left being part of the slow, stubborn, beautiful work of making sure the world noticed the next kid faster, and the one after that, and the one after that. Outside her window, the Oregon night went on. Inside her chest, the heart she had almost lost kept beating. And in the quiet, in the dark, in the warm and breathing house, Sadie Boone was finally completely, undeniably home. And the door that had been closed against her for so long, the door she had pried open with both bleeding hands, the door the world had finally come around to opening from the other side, that door was going to stay open now. For her, and for the next girl, and for the next. Forever if she had anything to say about it. And she did. She really finally did.